The moon was shining when we got to the bus for the ride up the hill, but now the clouds are rising. Another large stone worked. Whether it was for the stairway or not, I don't know. And you can see the one below is partially worked. I'll take this walkway down to the lower portion. Hut of the caretaker up there. This is probably at least 2 stories high, as you can tell. Don't know what this building was. Some huge slabs built right in the architecture. I think this area is referred to as the rock quarry, but also I think these may be the 2 ceremonial baths. And if that's the case, in theory, somewhere down here is the Temple of the Sun. Nothing's labeled here, probably in an effort to make sure that the guides get all the work they can, or because the tour groups have their own guides. Now I'm standing up on top of this big rock, and I'll look at it from in front in a minute or so, but you can see how this rock has been worked, both right here, where it's sculpted out, and maybe even there, those little lines there may have been something. Here's a close-up view of this rock. It obviously had some kind of significance. And again, I'm guessing that this large room was the Temple of the Sun. How you would know, I don't know. And again, I assume this is more of the what's called the rock quarry. Looks like a little marmot. Notice the rock sticking out on the side of this granary to hold the roof down. You can imagine it must have been a very pretty place to live. Even assuming that those terraces were filled with plants of some sort. Here are some of the relatively few of the truly Inca worked stones. Looking at some detail, I would guess these big jobbies were also for holding a roof down, although this I don't think was a granary. Notice here the two holes, and there's two more up above, presumably for some kind of water drainage. If you look at the faces, you can see a narrow groove and about 3 times as large a groove running horizontally on this large rock here. Very, very large rock. Another huge rock in the center, probably for the altar. You can see the effects of land slippage of some sort here. That little niche is interesting there. Maybe it holds some kind of cross beams of some sort, because there's a matching niche on the other side. And notice here a large niche, probably for the same function and matched over on this side. Notice how this niche is made with a rock on the bottom. This may have been a tired stone, partially worked and abandoned for some reason. You can see a notch on the top of this pillar, perhaps to hold whatever kind of rock went across there as a beam. And notice that this is worked with 3 levels: Condor, Puma, and Serpiente. Here is some kind of inner room. Notice the benches and the niches. Notice the niches opposite these benches. And a couple of interesting things, either for decoration. Notice the grooves. And grooved at the back for some reason. This huge rock is typical Inca rockwork, multi-sided. Notice that it wraps the corner just a bit. Dramatic piece of rock built right into the architecture nicely. Notice this large rock, natural in its place, and the one next to it are both worked with little shelves, probably for offerings. Here we're climbing up to the top of this little knoll that's normally on the upper left of any picture you see of Machu Picchu. And again, a chunk of the natural stone carved into this partial stairway. Notice the stairway had sides to it. Presumably that rock is a critical temple rock, or even an astronomical rock. Again, those pointy buildings are usually granaries. But this is certainly a dramatic citadel. I mean, this exact rock that I'm standing on. Maybe you can get a sense of it from the edge there. Now this is an interesting window because the entire trapezoid is carried almost to the bottom and then just precisely filled in. Now whether it might have been a door first and then they decided to go for the window, who knows. Lovely carved steps out of the natural stone. And notice it continues around. Notice the border there. The edging to that rock. Could this have been a throne? Certainly looks like a seat. Certainly this large protrusion on the top has to have had some important value, and maybe that protrusion on the left perhaps for astronomical determination of some sort. Just a view of these terraces, since they're just astounding to me. Can you imagine working these heights? and the precipitous cliffs that those are. Again, if it's anything like it was at Waynapicchu, these terraces might have been used for decorative flowers. By way of note, that's the house of the high priest is the square one. This one to the left is the temple of the three windows. Nothing labeled, of course, that would be far too convenient and sophisticated. And that's the principal temple in there. So this rock here is, this to me is one of the most dramatic hills, is the one I'm standing on. It's small, discreet, well developed. I mean, from their view. But just imagine, how do you work these ledges? Did they ropes? This is the end of tape 13, 14. This is the stairway going down off of this little knoll. And this stairway is access for those who tended these terraces. A view looking up. Notice the stairway there to the right for those who served those terraces. There looks like some more typical Inca stonework. Who knows what mysteries this little cave-like area of rocks would have held in the past. Here it was used to some degree like a ceremonial thing. Even in this little crevice there is a little niche for something. So everything probably had a purpose. These are probably for measuring soil, and my guess is for measuring soil movement to detect what appears to be downhill movement in some places. Here two archaeologists are working with a sealant whose purpose is to reduce deterioration from water and from plants. This is the view from the far end of the pictures or drawings you usually see. I don't know what this area was used for. Perhaps it was a large plaza. Perhaps it was planted. I'm guessing that the sheets over there, which are over 3 holes, is probably exploring those questions. This is the sacred rock. Notice the bench around it and they're flanked by some restored granaries. Note, these are probably not granaries since they have large niches at the back of each one. This is a bear of a hike, and it's just getting started. This is easily the most difficult climb I've ever made. This is just a hint of what it is. Cables are good in some places. Otherwise, believe it or not, they actually had a rubber hose as a retaining strap or whatever the hell it was supposed to be for. Not quite to the top yet. Whether these rocks were used for astronomical purposes, I don't know. I would imagine so. Notice you can see some of the cuts in them where they've been dressed, like right there in the middle. And way up to the far left is where I was yesterday afternoon, right in that notch, almost to the top. This is a cavern that you crawl through. They've sculptured it out on the sides a bit, built stairway in it, so you can keep going higher. Hey, this is the entrance, and there's, maybe see a little bit of light back inside there somewhere. Here's an example of up, of down. Toughest climb I've ever made. You see the people just at the top, or just short of the top. The safety here is almost a zero concern. Some kind of temple, maybe. This is a temple on the east side as you're looking at the Lonely Planet map. Kind of the northeast section of those buildings. It may be the long rectangle. Notice this building is set up for a second floor with those windows, although they're pretty low. Here we're at that point in the northeast corner of the complex. Here, a double row of staggered niches. Apparently all of this area is residential, or was residential. You wonder if these big stones had an earlier purpose, or whether they were just naturally left here in the middle of your house. Again, it's easy to see here how a lintel stone would have crossed over there, and also that one stone sticking out would have been used to tie the roof down. Notice this one seems to have a hole in it. Maybe just a further kind of a tie-down device. You can notice the small hole in it. Okay, so still apparently the residential area, although the industrial starts down there somewhere. And this, the sign says, is the 3 doorways with an arrow, so we'll go in and see where they are. Probably for lack of any other definition, this building is the 3 doorways. What significance, if any, we don't have a clue. Apparently all of this was residential. Here they did a little work on this stone. Why it's at such an angle, I don't know. This was apparently just designed to give them a pathway through. Maybe it was used as a tabletop. Maybe it is sunk. Maybe this is natural. Who knows? Notice the long corridor. And gentle, in this instance, inward sloping of the wall, although this one's perpendicular. Don't know what the significance of these stones is. Probably a hearth or something over there. This indentation area appears to be the location of the central plaza on the Lonely Planet map. A large building, still in the residential area. Wonder why the Inca type rocks at the bottom and then this other architecture above it. This is apparently the industrial area, including the mortars on the Lonely Planet map. Presumably this is the industrial complex, and somewhere over there is the prison complex. What indicates that, I don't know. I am interested in going down looking at that particular rock. Deciphering what these buildings are would be difficult since I don't use any signs. I wonder if people had time or took the time to reflect on their location. You think it'd be unavoidable. Obvious that this has been heavily worked, but notice that those ledges slope, and that's what to me seems curious. unless this rock has shifted. And here right over this doorway you can see that that's been worked also. These curved corners are fairly unique at this site. What's interesting in this large room is this huge rock that was used for something. Certainly it makes an ideal altar. Here looks like another cave entrance to somewhere. This was a little room with a couple of niches, a little table area. But that has a curved wall, or somewhat of a curved wall, maybe because it sits on a point and gives a wide angle of view. Here they're actually leading us to morteros, which I assume means mortars. These are perhaps the mortars. Again, a worked stair. Whether this was a block brought in or was in place, I don't know. Kind of looks like it would be one that was brought in. Presumably this area in here was the prison group. Why, I don't know. I have no clue where I am, but apparently I'm in a building area where this rock was a major component. What this is, I don't know. Of course, there's no clue. This appears to have another grotto, like underneath that rock. So we'll go through and find out what it is. Having come through that narrow little opening. Notice the huge slabs of rock here. This must have been a very special place. And here, niches carved, apparently to hold offerings. This is interesting that it has a ledge. I'm not sure. In this instance, I would assume the ledge is for offerings. A couple of niches. And here, an air passage right straight through for some reason. Difficult to tell, but apparently somewhere in here should be the Temple of the Sun. The guide was was stating to his clients that mountain there was caused, that face was caused by glacier. For all I know, that could be the Temple of the Sun up there. The architecture is much more sophisticated, at least the stonework is. Here are a series of purification baths. Here you can see how they made narrow channels to keep carrying the water down through all of the various baths. Apparently it's just one series of baths after another. I'm not sure how pure the water was when got through all of these to the last guy. Notice how the water's been channeled and there for that one. But then for this particular bath, it's been channeled separately all the way around so that it comes in this way. Now notice how this water path and the bath itself has been carved out of that one piece of stone. Also notice on this one, for some reason, there are two paths for the water to take. Even though it comes from the same source, goes to the same place. There's a triple stair here. This, I am assuming, is the Temple of the Sun. The sophistication of the stonework suggests either more attention, or for some reason this is more Inca than everything else. This would be the Temple of the Moon. Notice the holes just at the bottom of the door. What was that for, and why that curious niche? First time I've seen that. Here we're looking into what may be the first, it appears to be one of the largest of the baths. And right next to it, a very time-consuming bit of rock work. All of these levels carved out, perhaps to hold icons, perhaps even the chief Mucky Muck sat right there or something. So here we have kind of a long view. There is the second, the first being the kings up to my left of these purification baths.
You're talking about the sunrise.
Yeah. It's not sure clear. The sunrise is in the morning from my
Okay, here's the real primo temple.
Entonces las dos ventanas, solsticio de verano, solsticio de invierno, ellos observan cómo sale, cómo ingresa, qué sombras hace por interior para poder observar y ver el tipo de clima. Templo del mundo de arriba y templo del mundo de abajo, Pachamama. Dentro de aquí vemos un bloque de...
Notice the curved inward sloping as it goes, as the walls go up, construction. An interesting little tidbit, I have no idea what it's for.
Este es el ingreso.
Something curious about this window, and that's the four knobs. In theory, some of the theories I've heard was those knobs were for the purpose of moving large rocks, but those certainly are not large. It's possible that they've been weathered and otherwise would be used to cover or put something around the window. These men are tediously scraping away the moss. One wonders why, if you need to kill it or get rid of it, you wouldn't just spray it. So at the top of these stairs, worked into the raw stone, was the actual entrance into the Temple of the Sun. One thing to notice is this, again, this rock with a circular hole in it. Certainly it alludes to the ball court games, but I'm thinking it has some other function. So that ring is relevant to an Inca door, and the door hinged at that point and it closed in place where those two sets of two holes are. Apparently, the door was raised, hinging on that ring. And here's a particularly long set of stairs. I wonder if they were more precisely carved out as opposed to those curved angles. We're inside a reconstructed building, and it appears that these are windows rather than doorways, because if you walk out them you probably die. This is interesting because it looks like a little offering rock, and the step is interrupted there for it. This is one of the trains to and from Machu Picchu. This is the river that runs right beside the town of Agua Calientes. In case you're running short of a place to spend your money on when you come here, these people will gladly accommodate you with, I'm sure, super first class accommodation. You'd love to see something come down there like an abandoned boat just to see what would happen to it. Pretty little plaza off the main drag. Building long-term under construction. Hopefully they'll finish it someday. New building going up. This walkway along the river is a very pretty walkway, and hopefully it will inspire maintained buildings and maybe new buildings to replace the hovels here. It's all part of the experience. Nice little spot. These little parklets are nice and a pleasant place to stroll, although the view is not very impressive. A couple such bridges that span the river, the railroads on that side, so you need one bridge to get there. For some reason they're breaking up rock over there. It may be that they've dumped this rock in and they're going to use it for some kind of a breakwater like this, or break wall. Believe it or not, this man, I think, is making smaller rocks out of bigger rocks. This is where the people who work all these shops live. Looks like a school up there. So here's the train station. If I remember correctly, I have to go through a phalanx of these giga hawkers to get to it. Butterfly that got caught in here by mistake. This is my little restaurant, which is part of my hostel on the main tourist walkway. And back inside there is the entire kitchen, except for this stove.